There are serious and undeniable changes now taking place at the highest levels of the world's power structure. First, as already noted by Neil Keenan and others, U.S. President Barack Obama told the Washington press corps at the White House correspondent dinners at April 30th that the end of the Republic has never looked better, and that it is an honor to be here at my last, and perhaps the last White House correspondent dinner. Furthermore, the White House put out a detailed plan on May the 6th for a peaceful transition of power. CIA sources say the plan is still to keep Obama as the face of the regime and use him to transition to a Donald Trump presidency, but that Obama was no longer living in the White House and that the powers behind the throne had changed. One very visible sign of the U.S. regime change is the fact that 1,500-year Skull and Bones documents will be released to expose U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, the Bushes, and other Cabal members, Pentagon sources note. This disclosure is a clear sign the Santanas have lost at the highest level of the U.S. power structure. There will be more about the U.S. situation below, but there's another major development we wish to discuss first. Last week, this writer attended a meeting in Yokohama, Japan, of the senior lodge members of a 55 million-member benevolent Asian secret society. The meeting discussed future peaceful plans for the lodge in Japan. There were also detailed discussions about a new international financial system that will replace the current system over the next few years. Specialists from many different fields attended the meeting. Finally, the society expressed a desire to work based on the principle of peace in a mutually beneficial manner with international White Dragon Society. That is all we are allowed to disclose for now. The White Dragon Society was also contacted last week by two representatives from the government of mainland China. One, representing the Chinese Communist government security apparatus, said that 12,000 tons of gold were now being offered at a 13% discount on the same conditions as the 8,000 tons previously discussed in this newsletter. The gold is in 12.5 kilogram ingots and is available for immediate pickup in Hong Kong. Furthermore, if the offer is not accepted by May the 16th, the Chinese will take unilateral action on this issue, he says. The White Dragon Society has recommended that they make a move against the US dollar if the current controllers of the dollar system refuse to accept this gold. Since Henry Kissinger's fraudulent hijacking of the dollar system has ended, as far as we can tell, there are two current claimants for the positions of M1, or controller of the US dollar system. One is Neil Keenan, and the other is believed to be the eldest surviving son of former Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos, who now lives in Canada, as presented by David P. Crayford. If either of them can pull it off, with success, they conjure up some dollars and take delivery of the gold. It is a good deal, solid gold in exchange for paper numbers in computers. If neither of them can pull it off, we suggest that General Jose Dunford step in and arrange this deal. There's also a faction in the U.S. that has been buying up historical Asian bonds at cents for the dollar, according to Chinese sources. The money they receive for handing over the bonds will be frozen, Pentagon sources say. Those who still think the US dollar does not need to be backed by gold or other real-world assets need to take a look at the chart in this link showing how the end of the dollar-gold peg resulted in a debt disaster for the US. The end of the gold peg triggered a more than 40-year looting spirit of the American people and US trade partners by the Khazarian Mafia, White Dragon Society members agree. The Chinese offer of gold will put a permanent end to this looting, a White Dragon Society official say. Meanwhile, another Chinese official to contact the White Dragon Society represents a faction inside the Chinese Politburo that is opposed to Chinese President Xi Jinping. The source says there's a major power struggle taking place in China. President Xi Jinping's mandate is not going to be renewed after his first 5-year term ends in 2018, and it's doubtful he will even survive until then, he said. The source said Xi was undertaking what amounted to a second cultural revolution that had already purged 13 million people as part of an anti-corruption campaign. The result was that new projects were not going ahead because everyone was too afraid to sign them into being, the source said. The only projects now going on ahead were big ones approved by the central government, he said. The result is severe economic pain. Xi Jinping also got into trouble in China because he accepted a knighthood from the Belgian royal family when he visited Brussels at the end of March 2014. Certainly, it appears as if Xi did not understand what become a knight, no matter how honorable the title seems, means acknowledging that he's a vassal of Belgian king. Furthermore, the knighthood was the Order of Leopold, associated with King Leopold, the genocidal butcher of the Congo. The other interesting information this source had was that the Chinese military command was undergoing a fundamental realignment. The Chinese military was going to be divided into 5 commands: Southern, Northern, Eastern, Western, and Central. There were also discussions underway about moving the capital of China away from parched Beijing, he said. Yet another source to contact the White Dragon Society last week was Xiaoxi Zhang, a claimant to the Manchu dynasty historical gold treasuries. Zhang says he recently survived an assassination attempt by agents sent by South Korean President Park Geun-hye. Zhang says he was a refugee hearing with the Tokyo Immigration Bureau on May the 12th, where he re-argued that if he's sent back to South Korea, he's sure to be killed by Park because her faction wants to usurp his claim on Manchu gold. However, the Chinese government official who introduced Zhang to his rider now claims he's a con actor. In Japan, meanwhile, there's a consensus among backroom power brokers that Prime Minister Abe and his Kyushu clique must go. However, there's still no consensus on who to replace him. So, like Obama in the US, Abe will continue as the face of Japanese power for now, even as his scriptwriters change. For one thing, the TPP trade deal negotiated in part by Abe is going nowhere under the new regime. Now back to the West for more on the latest developments there. The biggest event after the US regime change has to be the declaration of holy war by Russian Orthodox Patriarch Kirill last week. While Kirill cited terrorism as the enemy, this was really a joint US and Russian operation against the satanic Khazarian mafia, Pentagon and other sources say. The realization that hundreds of thousands of children are being butchered by the Khazarians in the US, the Ukraine, and elsewhere is creating a groundswell of revolution that is leading to major military action, Pentagon and NSA sources say. The White Dragon Society promises to hunt down and kill every last one of the child murderers. The arson attacks against one Orthodox church in New York, 2 in Australia, and 3 in Russia on Orthodox Easter and systematic murder of Christians by Khazarians in the Middle East is a sure sign this holy war is more than just rhetoric. There's already a hybrid war raging against the Khazarians, and they are losing big time. The Saudi Bin Laden group, for example, is filing for bankruptcy. In a clear sign, the Khazarian Saudi royal family, the Bush family buddies, and their cronies are in trouble. Elsewhere in the Middle East, the Mossad-linked site Debka is reporting that ISIS has suddenly declared war on Israel. This is, at the very least, a sign the Israeli regime is trying to dissociate itself from ISIS now that the power balance has shifted decidedly against the Khazarian mob. The resignation of Turkey's prime minister last week may be a green light for the military to oust Erdogan, Pentagon sources say. Also, CIA Director John Brennan is isolated in the U.S. power structure as a lone dissenter opposed to the release of 28 unpublished pages of the 11 September report, a Pentagon sources notes. No doubt, he got his big bribes from Saudi King Salman, the sources said. In these circumstances, a humble former CIA boss, Dick Cheney, sensing the change in the U.S. power structure, has turned on the Bush family and endorsed Donald Trump. This may help him avoid assassination, but will not spare him from the 11 September perp talk, the Pentagon official said. There are also going to be serious consequences to certain parties in the U.S. for what the CIA officials described as an arson attack against Canada's oil sand town of Port McMurray. If you mess with Canada, prepare to get kicked in the ass, Canadian intelligence agency officials warn. In South America, meanwhile, the Khazarian mafia campaign to oust Brazilian President Dilma Rousseff is falling apart as House Speaker Eduardo Cunha was ordered to step down by the Brazilian Supreme Court. Their entire private parliament is likely to be hung if they keep up their campaign to steal Brazilian access for Khazarian gangsters. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, the German and French governments are now openly opposing the Kazarian-Concord TTIP trade deal thanks to leaks of its contents, allegedly by Greenpeace. The IMF has also broken ranks with Germany on Greece after it was revealed that almost all of the bailout money supposedly intended for Greece was handed out to corrupt bankers. Perhaps it is time for German Chancellor Angela Merkel to check the engines on her father Hitler's old submarine and think of an escape route. Maybe she can be given a life in exile on the old Nazi haunt of Bariloche, Argentina. This will not be an option for other members of the Bush, Clinton, Rami Kramp syndicate. They and their fellow Khazarian mafia gangsters have nowhere on this planet or this universe where they can be able to flee to this time. It is humanity times for justice.